Hi, good morning cross patchers. We've got to the end of our sampler quilt, so I'm just going over again the borders on your sampler quilt. If you've got the big sampler quilt or the little sampler quilt, you can just put 3.5-inch squares around the borders. So if you have a look at this one here, on the big quilt it's just 3.5-inch squares. Or you can do the quarter square triangle blocks, as I showed you in the first video, but we'll go over them again in a minute. The little one, as I said before, I made it into a bag. So all I did was I used my quarter square triangles as a gusset rather than using it as a side of a quilt. So we've got the side quarter square triangles at the side of the bag. The bottom row is the bottom of the bag. And the other row that you've got left, just use for the top of your bag at the back. And then all you need to do is to add, underneath that, you need a piece of fabric 15.5 inches deep by 18.5 inches wide, and you sew your row of quarter square triangles to the top of that. If you want to add a pocket, I folded a piece of like linen-y style French general fabric that I had in half to give another piece of 15.5 by 18.5, and I put a bit of lace across the top of it. And then I just put that on top of the bag panel before I added the gusset to it. Now, putting a gusset in the bag, if you go back to the last video, the easy shopper bag, that explains to you how you put a gusset in. So it will look like this when you're putting the gusset in. So those 3 side panels you've sewn into one long strip, and then you just sew them around the edge of the bag. Then obviously you sew them to the other side as well. But the other video will tell you how to do that, and it will also tell you how to make the bag handles. The bag handles, I just cut up scraps of fabric that I had left. So I've got a nice bright rainbow style handles. I usually do the handles about 20 inches long, something like that. It depends how much fabric you got left. These ones are a bit shorter. I think these were about 15 inches by 5. Have a look on the last video, it tells you how to do bag handles, and I think I've actually got a whole video on bag handles on how I make them, and they're just top stitched to the top and the front and the back of the bag. If you want to add a zip, have a look at my video again on putting easy zippers in. You make your zipper unit, that goes through it again on the easy shopper bag. Make your zipper unit last, and then you just top stitch it to the top of your bag. That makes a simple bag. But obviously, if you want, you can just make a little quilt. So here's the little version of the quilt that I made a while ago. So that's what it would look like if you just want it as a wall hanging. This hangs on my lounge door normally. So that's that. For making your binding, again, I cut all my leftovers up into 2.5 inch by whatever length I had left, and I joined them into one long strip to go around the quilt. And I'll show you how I put the binding on in a minute as well. So if we just recap, I'm going to angle you down and just recap the quarter square. 2 contrasting fabrics together, so draw across the back of all of your fabrics. Okay, start with one of them and stitch 1/4 inch either side, and then you're going to cut that in half. Then you're going to get 2 pieces like this. Now you can do lots of different half square triangles and then join different random ones together. But just to show you here, let's just join these together. So make sure all my seams are going to fold towards the red, so that when I put those together, they will butt up nicely. And if you've drawn seams, lines should I say, across the back, which I just told you to do and I haven't done in this case, you'll have a line across there, and you can then just stitch 1/4 inch either side of that. Okay, so here's one that I did draw the lines on. So they're ready sewn. I've drawn a line across there. I'm going to stitch 1/4 inch either side of that, and then when I open that up, I'm going to end up with my quarter square blocks. So the squares that you start off with before you sew anything are 4.25 inches. So by the time you've sewn one, cut it in half, and then sewn the other and cut it in half, you'll end up with 3.5 inch blocks like so. Okay, putting your binding on your quilt, this is how I do it. So this is a little block I had lying around the shed. you measure all the sides of your quilt, and then I usually add about 8 inches on just to make sure I've got enough, okay? And that will give you the length of binding you need. So cut 2.5-inch strips. It doesn't have to be bias at all. I fold the first side over, so that's the seam there, and then I start stitching. Like on a big quilt, I'll start stitching about 6 inches from the end, from that folded end. And then when you get to a corner, so here's the last corner, so there's your binding, you fold it back at an angle, so this corner is level with the corner of your quilt. So fold that back and then fold it forward, so stitch to the end of your quilt, take it out of the machine, I find is easier, and then fold your binding back and then fold your binding forward, put it back under the machine, do a couple of stitches there and carry on stitching round. So you do that at each corner. Then when you get to the other end of your quilt, you're just going to tuck that in the end there and just carry on stitching over, and then you can turn them all out and slip stitch them round the back. So you can see it will nicely mitre your corners for you in each corner. So when you put it over the back, when you get to a corner, you'll just fold it over like that on the corner and slip stitch it round, okay? So that's how we did that. And as I said before, the binding is just lots of different colours joined together. So that's how we finish it off. That's our quilt finished and our bag finished. I'd love to see pictures. You can message me or put pictures on Facebook. Things that are new, demos that are coming. I've just started making this sewing roll. So that's as far as we've got with the sewing roll. So that's going to roll up into three bits. And here's the inside of it on the ironing board. It's going to have pockets with zips in. So I've sewn the 3 pockets on it already. So that's going to go inside that. That's today's job. You might have seen pictures of this quilt. If I just hold this up, this will be a demo coming soon. So we've got this quilt here, and then there's a matching table runner, which is here. If you can see that, hang on, let's see if I can get it off without everything falling off. That's a matching table runner to go with that cloth that you could put on a side table or even as a wall hanging. So that's coming as well. So there are things in motion. This was a new hearts quilt that we put together. There's kits available on the website for that. And that's it for today. So thank you for watching. I'll put all the measurements and stuff in the description of the video, so you've got all the measurements again. If in doubt, message me, and that's it really. So thank you for watching. Thank you for making the sampler quilt. I'd love to see pictures of your finished sampler quilt. Have a lovely day. I hope it's not horrible grey and rainy where you are. Okay, see you soon. Bye.